Here we are. Welcome back. It's been a while. Originally when I started doing these podcasts, the idea was all spawned around, having a quiet mind, time to think, and exploring people's narratives. That was the key. What kind of spawned this change was incorporating what I have been doing, which is getting together, having good, authentic conversations, but also incorporating some of the things that do drive me crazy. And trip reviews, they're always the same. It's me sitting in front of a computer and trying to put some pictures together. So maybe incorporating the two will free up some more time. Here we go. Westbank anglers permit to think. It's a little different. All right, well, welcome back. We have the pleasure today of sitting down with Colin again, operations manager here at Westbank Anglers, and Keith Rosenis, the managing director at Blue Safari, formerly Alphonse Fishing Company. That's a recent change. Colin runs all things at Westbank Anglers and was recently on the episode about Mexico, gave kind of a more formal background, originally from Virginia, been out this way for 10 plus years. And Keith's resume, I'm going to give it a shot. It's pretty impressive. 30 plus years in the fly fishing industry, guide, host, videographer, lodge owner, manufacturer, pioneer, explorer, and the list goes on. And well, thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, it's this is exciting, right? Because the Seychelles, near and dear to my heart. I mean, I'm sure Keith and Colin, you guys both get this question often, when someone realizes that you work in the fly fishing industry, for better or for worse, right? They always want to know, like, what's the best place you've ever been? What's your favorite fishing trip? Your favorite fish? And a lot of those answers, for me at least, come back to the Seychelles, and some early trips there with Keith's company. One in particular, probably, one of the best trips I've ever taken in my life. And then also, on the flip side of that, right, it's not like you guys have a different weather system there, right? So you can get over that way and experience, a cyclone, which I have a couple times as well. But and going off of that, Colin's first trip, when he said he wanted to go there, I was like, well, you're kind of jumping right into the big leagues, and he knew it, and he wanted to do it, and he did it. And I don't know, it was really infectious, because he came back, Keith, and he was just glowing. I mean, it was like, at one point I was like working in my office, and I'm like, wow. I mean, it was like he just met his first girlfriend. It was it was amazing. But before we get too far, I think a lot of anglers know about the Seychelles. They've been to the Seychelles, and if they haven't been, they want to go. But I've been surprised at how many people don't know where it is and exactly. And maybe, Keith, if we could start with kind of a an overview of all of your operations, and then Colin will obviously get to Cosmoledo in particular. But I think it's important because it's not just one operation. So if you could kind of give the listeners a general overview. Wow, overboard.
Overboard's also good. I can give them an overboard overview. So the Seychelles is on the east coast of Africa. It's just above Madagascar. It comprises of 115 islands. Look, some of those islands aren't quite islands, but the most important thing to remember is that it's atolls. So when you're close to the main island that you're flying to from wherever you come from, it's granitic. So it's got mountains and it's quite lush and lavish. But once you start coming to the south towards Madagascar, it becomes the coral atolls. So flat atolls. I think the highest point on these islands is probably a couple of meters. So they're all formed from coral. So volcanoes, millions and millions of years ago, and as they subsided into the seabed, the coral grew up to the ocean top, and then obviously the deposits then formed on top, and then the islands grew. So you've got these wonderful white atolls and lagoons. Our closest atoll, which we fish from Mahé, the main island, is about a half an hour flight. You can sail. It'll take you 14 hours on one of our boats, liverboards. But otherwise, you would fly in, and it's about a half an hour flight. So it's quite a distance, about 110 nautical miles from Mahé to the northwest. The closer atolls you generally fish have had a little bit more pressure from obviously fishing people, because obviously they're close to the main islands. And as you kind of move your way out a little bit further out there, the fishing tends to get a little bit wilder for the big species and so forth. So the closer atolls we fish are it's called the Amarantes chain. We fish it from a boat called Quavadis, and it's a beautiful catamaran which we can get nice and close to the atolls. And we predominantly fish for Indo-Pacific permit. You will see GTs, you will see triggers, you will see bonefish, but that's your permit junkie destination. So some days you can get hundreds of shots. Some days you can get none, as all your permit junkies out there. But it really is one of the most amazing places because it's on foot. And if you fish a place like Poivre, they are technical fish. They are hard to catch. You'll see a lot, and they do mess with your mind. So it is a wonderful place to be. I mean, I've been there. I fished a whole week. I must have fished 600 fish. I didn't even get one to look at my fly. I mean, I got a couple follows maybe, but and then you can go back. Then you can get 3 fish in a row. So it is really one of those most beautiful, spectacular places. Small islands, atolls. White sand, plus obviously broken coral and so forth. So amazing place. As you work out more to the south, our next island or atoll, and our main atoll is called Alphonse Island. And the reason why it is the most amazing atoll is that it's got our biggest hotel. So we've got a small resort. It's still a lodge, but it's a small resort, and it's a destination which appeals to everybody. We entice and invite families, your non-fishing partner or your fishing partner. We've got wonderful spas and pools and villas and so forth. But the beautiful thing about Alphonse is that it's got the most magnificent atoll right next to it. Alphonse is an atoll, you can fish it, but a short boat ride across to St. Francois, and you've got this amazing atoll, which is it's got the most amount of white sand than all of the other atolls. It's got the biggest population of boatfish. It's got a great population of Indo-Pacific permits, incredible population of triggerfish, and it's also got quite a decent population of giant trevally. And it's in close proximity to a beautiful lodge or resort or whatever you want to call it, but it's never been inhabited. So it's frozen in time. It's protected. It's amazing. And you can if you want to come for a hardcore fishing trip and fish from dawn till dusk, you can have it there. But also if you want to come on more of a sort of casual trip and bring your non-fishing partner or your fishing partner or family, you could do that as well there, and you'll be well taken care of in barefoot luxury. But it's the beautiful thing about Alphonse is situated right in the middle, so it's a nice little stepping stone. So if you want to go to the further the atolls further to the south, I wouldn't say so more wild, but the further out atolls, you can pop into Alphonse for 2 or 3 days and enjoy yourself. Before you can let the jet lag wear off a little bit. And you can catch a hell of a lot of bonefish. It really is known as having one of the biggest populations of bonefish in the Indian Ocean. And there's some really good sized bonefish as well, not your little macro bonefish. And also it's a destination where you can target all the species. It's the one destination in the Indian Ocean that accounts for more milkfish caught every year on flour than all the destinations around the world put together. Some days we catch, upwards of double figures, and,
Wow.
when you're catching upwards of double figures in milkfish, you know that you're hooking, three zeros behind it probably. Sorry, two zeros behind it probably. So you're probably hooking about 100 milkfish to land 20 milkfish if you've had a good time, a lucky time. So when you've got this wonderful place stuck in the middle of all the other atolls that you offer, it's a nice little stepping stone. All flights fly via Alphonse. They stop over at Alphonse. You can have in a breakfast break, and then they move on to the other destinations. Starting then, obviously moving down more south, but more south to the southeast, we're Farquhar. Farquhar is an incredible destination, and it's the easterly atolls have an extra species over and above the other species that the northerly and the westerly atolls have, in that we catch bumphead parrotfish there. So the Oompa Loompa of the flats, the Smurfs, big blue cows.
Sea cow.
Yeah, that's one of the draw cards of going to those places is targeting the bumpheads. But the destinations to the southeast, they all these atolls are very different. So everyone says to me, well, what's your most favorite atoll? And it's hard to answer that, because they're all so different, and they all have unique aspects to them that will create incredible experiences out there. It'll draw you to that destination. But one of the draw cards of Farquhar is, obviously, I don't know if anyone's seen it, or if anyone on this show has seen it, but it's the place where they filmed Blue Planet 2, which is where the giant trevally eat the turds. I was fortunate to be the first person to ever see it. When I went down there in 2001, at that stage I was guiding 8 people. All at once, and there was an Australian gentleman, and the birds were flying around in the background, and he made a terrible cast and hooked a bird in his back cast. And obviously, with the weight of the fly, and the bird landed in the water, and as it landed in the water, GT jumped out the water and ate this bird. And I thought, my goodness, what's just happened? Obviously, it stripped a whole bunch of line off, and because the hook was buried in the bird, and it eventually came out. But that sort of sparked a sort of a response to seeing the splashes around me. And I was like, well, I wonder what these fish are actually doing, because I don't think they're eating bait fish. And, within a couple of hours, I saw my first GT eat an actual bird, out of the air, not swimming, out of the air. And I went back to the locals. There was 6 locals on the island. There was the only inhabitants there. And I asked them the question, and they thought I was crazy, because they obviously, in those days, they were still cropping sooty tern eggs. So they would go across there and they would pick up eggs to eat, but they'd never seen it before. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I am the first person to see it, but I like to think it anyway. Yeah, so they filmed Blue Planet 2 there on Goulet, where these big giant trevally, and still today they do the same thing. In September, they eat all the fledglings and the birds which are picking up salt water to put it on the island before they lay their eggs. So it is an incredible place. Now, all these destinations in the Seychelles are all frozen in time. They are within 90% of what you would have experienced 200 years ago. And in some cases, they're better than what they would have experienced 200 years ago, because 200 years ago, there was the sailors moving through and they're picking up all sorts of marine creatures and so forth to eat. So these places are wild and wonderful. And Farquhar is an amazing place in the sense that it's got a lodge. We cater for 10 anglers per week, and we do a maximum of 22 weeks a year. We don't fish it a day longer or a day more than that. All our destinations have the same kind of skiffs and guides. Really, really, really good guides. Guys have been, trained out there by our senior staff, and they've got all the good equipment, the equipment that you need in these remote destinations to put you in front of the fish, as much as possible. We get at Farquhar, it's got all the species. So we got the bumphead, we got the giant trevally, bluefin trevally, barracuda, Indo-Pacific permit, and then you've obviously got all the other species offshore, like you've got sailfish and dogtooth tuna and wahoo and so forth. But it is a great place because of the amount of white sand that it has, and then obviously the outcrops. So it's right there on the top. The top of it should be right there at the top of someone's bucket list. And then from there, if you move slightly more north and back towards Maui, 60-odd miles, you get Providence. Now, Providence is the longest atoll. It's about 30 kilometers from north to south, and it's probably the ugliest atoll in the Seychelles, if I can say it that way. In the sense that it's a long strip of broken coral and turtle grass with a little bit of beauty in the south. We've got four sand islands that have got a lot of white sand around them. But it's also a destination where bumphead parrotfish are caught. And, a lot of people refer to it as probably the least explored atoll, in the sense that, we fished it for many years, but only from a liverboard, because there is no lodge there. Because of the lay of the land, and it's a very narrow atoll, it's very hard to find your way into the atoll without getting trapped. So if you can imagine, if you're midway in Providence, you won't be able to see north or south. You've got no landmarks if it's high tide. So basically, you utilize GPS coordinates, and as that tide falls off, you then find yourself inside a lagoon. But with the tidal change, spring tides, you can get stuck in there. And if you get stuck in there inside that lagoon, you're going to probably spend the night there. So as things have changed over the years, and as us South Africans have learned how to pole, and we've got better boats and engines and so forth, lighter boats, we've started to push the boundaries. And find ourselves in hidden lagoons. We call them hidden lagoons, where you have big schools of big giant trevally. But more importantly, one of the most incredible species to catch there is Napoleon, and we get very big Napoleons, and there's a lot of them, and in these hidden lagoons you can find very very good shots at them. Whether you land them or not, it's another story, because obviously big and powerful, and they like to go back into their coral hide. But yeah, I mean, it is one of those species that's truly amazing to fish for. And sometimes you get them right up on the flats, with their tails up. And the only way you can tell between whether it's a bumphead or a Napoleon is because the Napoleon's dorsal will move. It'll move like that, almost like it fans. Whereas, obviously a bumpy, he'll just be static, and he'll push his tail up in the air a little bit more. Yeah, so that's Providence. We fish on board a liverboard, a big liverboard. We have 6 skiffs which we put in the water, all with poles. We've got a boat called Myers Dugong. It can accommodate. We only accommodate up to 10 anglers. And you can fish as a partner, or you can fish single. And what we do is we move the boat around the atoll, fishing different destinations, obviously different areas, targeting onto the flats. Really, really beautiful. So then moving along from there, we move to the west, and you will find yourself in a place called a stove. A stove is a very unforgiving atoll, in the sense that it's an atoll which has got quite a few mosquitoes, and it's an atoll which you need to be physically healthy for. It is truly, for me, it is the most pure form of flat fly fishing you'll get. You have to walk for your fish, and when you find your fish, you have to catch them on foot, and you have to fight them on foot. So none of the fishing around the atoll, or very very little of it, is done from boats. When the tide is in, we'll pull a little bit, we'll push the skiffs around, but generally they used to get you into the position, and then you're going to walk. And then we actually use a safari vehicle quite a bit, where we move you around to different places where you'll fish from the shore for GTs in the surf, but being dropped off by a vehicle rather than by a boat. But the unique thing about a stove is that it's got this large lagoon completely surrounded by land, with one small entrance or mouth, as we call it. So everything that's going in and out of that lagoon has to pass through that area. So it's obviously a bottleneck for the predatory species of fish, the big jeets and the big sharks. And so what happens is that the tide, because of the apex and the sheer sort of angle of the apex, the water falls out the lagoon for 11 hours. And when it turns around to push in, it builds against this apex and floods in for about an hour, all the way up into the lagoon. So it's quite a unique experience to be in that bottleneck area when the flood actually pushes all the water into the lagoon. It's almost like a little bit of a standing sort of wave, depending on the tides, obviously. But
Really
yeah,
nice.
it's got a healthy population of bonefish, really nice bonefish. It's got a very good population of Indo-Pacific permit around the island. Is sheer drop-offs. It's where Jacques Cousteau filmed a portion of the Silent War, as the Silent World, on the wall side. So you've got these predatory fish, these big fish swimming very close to the flats. And yeah, it's got milkfish offshore as well. So it really is an all-round experience. It doesn't have bumphead bonefish, unlike Farquhar and Providence does. And then obviously, that's the area, that's the atoll where you will fly into if you're going to Cosmoledo. You can fly directly into a stove. To the west of a stove, we have Cosmoledo, which is often referred to as the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean. It's got the largest seabird colony in the Indian Ocean. Right now, as we speak, it's got about 500,000 pairs of sooty terns flying around making a noise, getting ready to nest. And it's also got a hell of a lot of seabirds which nest on the islands during various times of the year. It's got all the different species of boobies. It's got pink-footed booby. It's got the brown booby, the moss booby. It really is an amazing spectacle from a bird aspect. But I'm sure a lot of people have seen the movie Cosmo. And we shot that with Yeti before we had built the lodge. And that movie basically encapsulates what Cosmoledo is about. It is the GD capital of the world. It has its challenges, like every atoll does. It's fishing, but it is without doubt the GD capital of the world. But not only is it the GT capital of the world, it's also a big bonefish destination. So you might not get as many shots as bonefish there, but you generally have a good chance of catching a 10-pounder there. It has all the other species. It has the triggerfish, all the triggerfish species, yellow margin, mustache, triggerfish, Picassos. It has barracuda. It has a lot of fish, different fish offshore, species of fish, grouper, snapper, all the species that you can experience at the other places as well. But it is a place which is frozen in time. And 8 years ago, we got the nod to build a eco camp. So what we did is we built a containerized eco camp where we prefabricated high cube, 20-foot high cube shipping containers off-site and insulated them, cut the backs open so they could fold open to make bathrooms and fold open in the front to make decks. We incorporated some tent tops, some cladding and so forth. And we set about, we built this place, and we built it in 21 days. We installed it, and the main area is a tent on beach sand, and you step out of your container, which is fully air conditioned and everything that you need. But while you're in these eco pods, what we call them, it almost feels like you're camping on the sand. So it's a very unique experience. Something that I haven't felt in a lot of places. Especially when you hear the birds around you and you're so close to your fishing. We got deep water close by. We moor the skiffs, right next to the lodge. In the morning when you walk out to accommodation or from the tent, you literally step out, 100 yards or so, and you're on your skiff and you're out for the day. And you're fishing these islands, 20 different islands, and there's so much going on. Now, in a day, you can be out there and you could have fished for 5 or 6 different species of fish, which we target on the flats in the shallow water, and at the same time, we have not seen anybody else. So, it is an amazing place. It is remote. It is protected. And I can talk about all these destinations for hours on end. It excites me, as you say. When Cole came back from Cosmo, he was all lit up and glowing, and I feel the same every time I talk about it. It does excite me. And the amazing thing about the destination is that, by anybody that goes there, the presence that we have there is protecting these places. Every person that comes out there, $30 of the revenue goes towards $30 a day of the revenue goes towards the foundations that we set up to protect these places. There's always a question is asked that is your presence protecting these places, and we can honestly say so, because without us there, there's all the commercial fishing that happens. It's so close to Madagascar and Comores that the boats can be over there in 4 or 5 hours. So having us there, policing the area, eyes and ears there, we're able to deter anything from happening. And since we've been there, we've seen an improvement. There was a stage where you could see the turtles and the birds and the fish were being targeted by the Malagasy and the Comorian people. And thankfully, every time it happens now, we're able to put a stop to it almost immediately by assistance from the Coast Guard. So, we believe that we're making we believe by inviting people, anglers, you guys, to come and experience the Seychelles with us, we really are making a difference in protecting these places. Let me shut up for a little while.
Yeah, and well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, right? Like if you're fighting off the commercial anglers, we're making progress, right? Because the pirate days are over. So so we're moving in the right direction, right? Yeah, I mean, it's a great recap of all the destinations. I've been fortunate enough to, go to all of them that you mentioned, and for good reason. Several of them, 2 or 3 times. And yeah, I mean, I think, Colin, what I'd like to hear from you is, I mean, I'll never forget, I think it was 2004, 2005 when I landed on Alphonse. As a young person in this industry, I was just kind of floored. What were your first impressions of all of it?
Yeah, definitely floored. I would say it was a lot of even disbelief. Like, I don't know, I've dreamed of going there for so long, and um, yeah, it was kind of hard to ball it up. But yeah, I mean, that would be the goal. Obviously, is to go eventually see all of them. But starting with one was a dream come true, and it really is like the Galapagos. I mean, there's so much wildlife and bird life, and the geology is incredible. The water's incredible. The different colors, whether it's on the sand or the turtle grass to coral to the deep blue, it's remarkable. It's such a special place.
You have to take it all in. If you're just going to go there for the fishing, you're going to be blown away. But if you have that ability to take it all in, the place where you are, you're so far away from everything else. If something had to happen to the rest of the world, you would never know. And you're out there and you're targeting fish and you're having the best time. But the thing is that a lot of people don't understand, the excitement of it all is that saltwater is an adrenaline rush. Now, especially in a place like the Seychelles, if it's your first trip, there's so many different things that happen at the same time. It's almost like at times it can be too much, so you've actually just got to slow it all down and just like take what as it comes, as as I'm sure you would have experienced, you could have been holding a boatfish rod, the next minute there's a GT, and next minute there's a trigger, and there's a permit. And at the end of it, you haven't even made a cast. You're just standing there with a rod in your hand. You don't know what's going on, So, if you have that ability, that superhuman ability to just slow things down in your mind, Matrix, then you can do well. But it does get better on the second trip.
Yeah, that's actually precisely what happened on the first day. I was fishing with Trevor, and we caught a jeet early in the morning, and first one, it was incredible. Like I was like, expectations already blown out of the water. Like I'm done. And but he was pulling along and had a G rod in my hand, and then a trigger would pop up. But I had the trigger rod strung out behind me, so I grabbed the trigger rod, and then a G would pop up, and then G rod was in the hand, and the trigger would pop up. And it's like, all right, let's just put one of these rods down and just let's go for one of these things because this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and Keith, I don't even think I've asked you. I mean, like we talked about briefly before we hopped on. I mean, there's a lot. It's pretty cool. I mean, not going to meet too many people that have fished where, you've fished. I've fished in Bhutan, Tanzania, right, Cameroon, etc. But when was your first trip to the Seychelles? Because you've been there 20 plus years, right?
Yeah, so 1997 was my first trip. Actually, my first trip was 1995, but my first trip back to actually start and look at getting into guiding was 1997. So that means that next year is my 30th year. This is my 29th year in the Seychelles.
Oh, that's amazing.
You know, and I still remember the first day I stepped in the flats there, and it was like that situation of I didn't have a guide, so I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what I was casting at, but it's that situation where there's just too much happening, you know. Yeah, since then I was lucky in the sense that my father decided that he was going to go with a bunch of mates. Well, actually invited on a trip with a bunch of mates to go game fishing. My father was a big game fisherman back in the days, and I tagged along. He managed, or he or my mother managed to convince him to take me with, and I tagged along, and I was dropped off on St. Joseph's to do some bone fishing. And I rocked up there in 1995, I think it was, with a 2-to-1 gear ratio salmon reel, New Zealand Killwell 7-weight rod that had been broken off in the fan, and probably 11-weight fly line, and 22-pound Maxima Chameleon, and the flashiest fly tied on a mustard a smack hook, and chasing these things that are tailing, so it's it was a learning curve. But for me, the light bulb moment was after I'd been working in London. I was working in a place called Farlow's, which is the oldest fly fishing store in Europe, and I got invited to a place called Clipperton, 1999, around there, and Clipperton's 1,000 nautical miles off Baja. So I was lucky enough to, as a shop assistant, to get this trip basically for free. And I went across and we jumped this trip, and it was hosted by Trey Coombs and all these big shots. I'm just this young guy, no one's going on. And we went across, and it took us 4 days to get to Clipperton in the Pacific to fish for world record size bluefin trevally. I went across there, and while standing on the flats there, it was just like this light bulb moment. I was just like, it's taken me literally 6 days to get here. We're on a big liverboard tuna boat, which I don't even know what the trip cost. It must have cost a fortune. And you've got all these. The boat is full, and you've got these dedicated people, and they're going out and they're walking miles and miles. Just getting dropped from the beach, fishing for bluefin trevally. And I was going, but of all things, bluefin trevally. I mean, they some stages you try to get away from in the Seychelles. You don't want to cast it. And I was like, well, there's definitely a business to be had in the Seychelles. If that's the case, if you have these kind of guests that went to pay this kind of money, travel this far to catch bluefin trevally, I mean, we've got giant trevally, we've got big bonefish, we've got triggerfish, we've got all of the above. So that was when I focused. I believed that it was the place to go, and I need to focus my energy on the Seychelles. Although I'd been there numerous times before. I was at that stage. I was guiding in Russia on the Panoy River, so I was figuring it out. How to become a guide. Went behind the years, just thinking, shit. The best guides just catch the most amount of fish. But after a couple of seasons, you realize it's not just about catching fish; it's about making sure the guy has a great time without catching fish. So and then slowly started picking up, contacts and meeting people and understanding how the community works and having these relationships with agents and just stepping stones. And 2000, I would say that around 2001 was really when I started making an effort in starting a proper business in the Seychelles. Whereas before I'd been guiding trips out there, hosting trips out there, doing numerous trips, but not significant enough to actually get your foot in the door in a significant way, if that makes sense. Obviously, that Alphonse was built in 1999, opened up in 2000, and that was obviously probably the first proper commercial fly fishing operation in the Seychelles. Whereas people had been fishing out of De Roche, coming and going across St. Joe's for many years before that, but the first professional guiding operation in the Seychelles was definitely Alphonse, and that's where a lot of the lessons were learned. A lot of a lot of the codes were cracked, figuring out with the milkfish catching, learning refining the patterns for triggerfish and so forth. And then, obviously we just took it to the next level from a tackle perspective and a fly perspective as we branched out to the more southerly atolls.
Well, and I guess I'd love to stress one thing, which is, I mean, you said it multiple times, both of you guys, right? I mean, you got to take it all in, because we're going to get to your trip, Colin, quickly here at Cosmoledo. But if you can't take it all in and you're just super, you're only solely focused on the fish and the weather doesn't cooperate, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, which is unfortunate, because it truly is. I mean, as Keith's describing, and I have one quick story, about that, about taking it all in. We were on Poivre, and we were permit fishing. We were getting our asses kicked, and we took a break right there in the where they clean the fish, and you've got some old structures, and I'm presuming which was a defunct marina from a time. And I look to my left, I'm sitting on a bench, and I see a big GT way out, kind of starting to push right on the shoreline. And both you guys know Tim Brune. I was like, Tim, get the rod. He grabs the closest rod, and the fish is coming, makes the cast, sets the hook, the whole thing blows up. Everything blows up, line snaps. And I just, after I stopped laughing, I was like, that was special. And then I look up and I start to see these birds like starting to congregate around. And I was like, what the hell are they doing? And then I see another GT, and then another GT, and we're there to permit fish. And all of a sudden, I'm like, the birds, the GT, Brune's getting blown up. And then the GTs just corner a bait ball up against the wall. Sorry, the GTs corner the bait ball. They spraying bait. The bait's jumping like 4 feet in the air. Birds are now coming down to pick up the bait. And then I look over to my right, and a couple local dudes have buckets, and they're already on the way out. I mean, it's just right. I mean, if I was out there, I would have never have seen that. It was pretty remarkable how I don't know if there's not too many places where you can see everything working in concert like that. And I feel like you guys have a lot of that. Not I mean, the GTs eating birds, et cetera, et cetera. But Colin, so you guys, walk us through the trip a little bit. No one on the trip had ever been there, right?
Yeah, one guy had been to Alphonse before, but everyone else was brand new to it. And which I think was special because we all kind of got to share that wow factor. We all first, especially walking, even just walking from on a stove to the boat, and then getting on the boat, going across and pulling up to Cosmo. I mean, none of us had seen it, so it's kind of, we got to share that moment, which was cool.
It's really cool. And I mean, that's obviously, I mean, I got to watch it go down, and I got to watch you do it in the shop. You've got to prepare people for these trips. And that's probably like one of the biggest conundrums, right? Is if you sell people all this gear and make sure they've got the right stuff, and then the weather goes to shit, and they're like, well, glad I, bought all that stuff. The flip side is the fishing's really good, and they don't buy enough. So either way, you're kind of screwed. But I mean, you had to walk them through, right? I mean, most people probably knew to, you walk us through it. The people listening, if people haven't gone to the Seychelles before, what are you, getting them?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I myself like to be prepared, so I always buy way too much stuff. I have it all just in case, because you never know what's going to happen. And yeah, I was kind of walking a lot of these guys through that, though. Like, hey, like, here's a lot of flies. You should buy them. And it's like, well, that seems like a lot. It's like, well, you never know what's going to happen, and you want to have the right stuff. And I see it a lot on different trips. And a classic one is buying all those flies, like you said, and maybe using one the whole time, especially if the fishing's slow. Or if the fishing's good, hopefully you're running out, and which is kind of what was happening, I'd say, especially with the beast flies, is myself and the guides were tying them every night to replenish kind of what we had lost or gotten destroyed. but it's hard. I mean, you can have, I think we all went with sinking lines. I don't think anyone used a sinking line, which is kind of fortunate. I mean, we mostly, we're fortunate enough to use the floating lines on the flats. And it's always funny because I always like to get in contact with some of the guides before I go on these trips and ask them, like, what are things that, aren't on the list? What are things that we should be bringing? Do you guys need anything? And so on and so forth. And one of the guides was like, yeah, like bring some 80 pound. Cause if the Jeets are being tricky, like it's good to have 80 pound. I don't think we used anything less than 130 pound the entire time. And it was like, this is best case scenario, I'd say. Kind of got a little sidetracked there, but
rod wise, right?
Yeah, rod wise, I'd say I used a 9 and 11 weight probably the most. I was using Thomas and Thomas sextants, and I used my 10 a little bit and 12 when we were doing some of the blind casting over the coral heads. But for the most part, I'd say I was using an 11 and then Shilton reels, and had a mix of, scientific angler lines, whether it was clear tip for permit or the GT Titan smooth. And it's incredible. I mean, it's got a 65 pound core, and there's a lot of great GT lines out there, but I got to witness, I hooked a fish and heard the guide and my friend jump up, and I was like, shit, something's wrong. And then I felt the knot go through my hand, and then I watched the knots go through several of the guides, and then stop, went to try to pop the first 3 rod pieces off, and within a split second, 4 guides blew up. The 65 pound GT core just exploded. It sounded like a gunshot going off. And I mean, it was a split second. It was just like, wow, the sheer power of that fish.
So you exploded the line.
Yeah, exploded.
You broke the fly line.
Gone. That's awesome.
I laugh because it is like that. It's a hard situation to be in, because you tell the guys to take 2 or 3 spare lines and put them in their backpack if they're going to be walking away from the boat, and if they don't lose those lines, well, then you look like an idiot. So it's a hard position to be in. But
it is.
The bottom line is that if you don't have the stuff and you lose it, well, then you're going to be more upset. It's about you've got to do that. You've got to overcompensate for eventualities, because I've been in that situation many times before where I haven't had enough fly lines, and I've had sort of 5 or 6 fly lines in my backpack, and I'm saying, and my guests don't have any because they didn't listen and they didn't bring any fly lines, spare fly lines. So it's it's a bitter pill.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened. I mean, some of the guys bought spare floating lines. Some of them bought even, several sinking lines or intermediates and everything just to have with them. And some guys were like, I'm just going to buy a floating line and play it by ear. And I think luckily you guys have some backstock there. So I think there were a couple lines purchased from the merchandise shop at Cosmo. But it's a hard one. I mean, because after that happened, the guide was like, Tim was like, hey, do you have an extra line? I was like, I do, but look at the guides. Like, I don't think it matters, because the guides on the rod were just gone. Or barely hitting line.
I mean, it all depends. It doesn't matter what fly line you choose. I mean, obviously it needs to be a fly line which is strong. It needs to be a fly line that doesn't have any texture on it. Because obviously, when you hook a GT and you got texture in the fly line and it's running through your fingers, it's like sandpaper. It's going to make a nice little train line there. But the most important thing is that your outfit, is to test it. Try it. Murphy's Law. You're going to arrive on destination. The GT action is going to start immediately, and you're going to be, not in the game. So it's quite important that whatever you have, it's a good idea to buy it from your destination where you're at. Make sure you got the right stuff. Follow the person that's behind the counter is intuition and experience at these destinations. Get that stuff, rig it on your rods, and actually make a cast or 2 with it, because it's a different experience picking up a 12 weight that's got a tarpon fly on the end, 50 pound fluorocarbon, to picking up a 11 or 12 weight rod that's got a 130 pound straight mono and a beast fly that's as long as a Coke bottle. So it is a learning curve, and the more you can arrive with the right kit. And in the zone, if it makes sense, will benefit you in a big way. But also the most important thing about kit is it's a safety thing, not only from a safety, i.e., swimming or whatever it is. Not that. It's about making sure that you're going to make the whole week. If you rock up with the wrong pair of boots and you don't have gravel guards and you don't have inners and you don't have a waterproof backpack and you don't have the right eyewear, it's going to be a terrible week. You're not going to enjoy it at all. Then your first day, you're going to get a rub on your foot and it's going to get infected, and then you're not going to fish for 3 days. So it's important to listen to the guys when they say you need to take something. So rather with me, I'd rather jump on the bandwagon and buy more than less.
Yeah, and I think the overall, I mean, those are great points, and I think the overall is right. Would you rather have great fishing and not the right shit, or have, be prepared for if you do have great fishing? And I guess the overall point of that is like, it's another big investment, and it's not just show up with the plastic on the wrapper of the rod, right? I mean, this is all stuff, if you're going to fly halfway, for us, if we're going to fly halfway around the world, um, put some time in ahead of time and get ready. And I think that's a good intro. I've never gotten the story from you, about Shilton, but obviously, I mean, I talk about it. I'd say, I mean, Colin or I or others in the shop talk about it, pretty often, right? Like, well, where are you going? All right. Well, if you're going to the Seychelles, if you're going to go somewhere, you're going to spend a lot of time in the water, a seal drag. And I have questions about that, but, obviously maybe just give us a brief rundown on how Shilton started, because we both fish them. We sell a lot of them. We're big proponents, and, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Shilton, is obviously a brand which I love. I've been involved with it from the beginning, and the reason why I love it so much is because of its simplicity. It's not a reel which it's not a fancy reel, put it that way, but it's a reel which you can pretty much fix under any circumstances, or get into a working order, even if you've fallen on it, kind of thing. When you're traveling to faraway places, you don't want to arrive there and have an issue with your reel. So there's a lot of things that can happen with reels. All different kinds. I'm not going to mention any brands, but I mean, various different reels. You arrive on location and they're just seized. I don't know whether it's a situation of with a seal drag where you're flying in a plane and it's not correctly pressurized in the cabin. When you have a Coke bottle or a water bottle and it's sucked in by the time you get there, or it's blown up like a packet of chips blow up inside the plane. When those kind of things happen within a seal drag, I believe it has the ability to move things. So those kind of things can happen. You never know, but whether that happens or not, if there's an issue with a closed drag or seal drag, you have no ability to fix it unless that reel has if it's a seal drag and you have the ability to open up and figure it out. So Shilton's has their faults, because it's an open drag, you can get water all the way through the reel. And so, obviously, that, the back of a spool, when it's with water on and there's a cork drag on top of it, it's not the smoothest thing. But the drag will still work, but it's not comfortable. But, it's as simple as taking a coin or taking anything that's on a flat surface, undoing the back end, opening it up, take the spool out, take the drag plate, or don't actually have to take the drag plate, just rub a piece of your shirt on it, or take a piece of toilet paper, just dry it off and put it all back together, and you're ready to fish. So that's the beauty of them, is the simplicity. The frames are strong, they don't flex. You can apply massive amounts of drag, smooth drag, and all you have to do is at the end of the day, if you swim with it, you put it underwater, you have to open it up and you have to strip the reel open up and get all the salt water out and dry it out and put it back together and it'll work. So that's the beauty of Shilton. I'm involved in it from the design aspect of the reels. We've been on the road of looking at doing different kinds of reels. And we've always arrived at the point that started us was to have a simple reel which will last, forever. And basically, you can swap out components when and at will as when you need them, without having a massive parts manual of how do you understand how to do it. So we believe they're the right reels for when you're exploring and fishing these vast places. That's why we use them. Funny enough, at Alphonse Island, the lone reels some of the lone reels are my original reels from about 30 years ago, and they're still going.
No way.
Those reels are out in the water every single day for 8 months of the year, and they've been going for almost 20 to 30 years. So you change the components, obviously drag plates and cork and so forth, but they really are it's a reel and a brand of reel that's durable, and you can take it and put it through its paces as long as you understand that the aspect of you've just got to take care of it afterwards. That's all.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There's just a little care after, but that's that's kind of how we've always. I'd say that's why Mike and I use them. That's why we sell a lot of them. Is it's like, hey, like there's not many parts on this thing that can break, and the ones that maybe will break, it's very easy to replace. Just swap them out.
Yeah.
Like Mike was just showing you, it's easy to have the spare cork disc or whatever it may be. Very easy to manage. You just have to remember to clean it after a trip. That's it.
I was just with some of our buddies in Mexico, Keith, and literally John and Clark and Carlton and that exact question came up. Was like, well, and I remember talking to you, and you were like, the only thing you need is something dry, to fix it, really, and that's exactly what he was explaining. He's like, it's slipping. And I was like, yeah, because there's a bead of water between the spool and the cork plate. So you just need to dry off the spool. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, try it. Because it happened to me. And I don't know, it was funny because I remember talking to you about that, and you were like, yeah, just dry it off. So,
Just try simple. I mean, I try not to put them underwater, but you inevitably end up putting them underwater. The nice thing about it's not the end of the day. End of the world. All you got to do is open it up and wipe it on your shirt and put it back together, and you're sorted.
yeah, and I don't mind throwing them in the water. It's probably not the best, but I mean, I think to the point of it's not. I do take care of them, right? So I mean, maybe sometimes I let them sit too long before I get to it, but there is a little bit of maintenance. I mean, I think one of the things that we found out with any cork drag is at altitude. I mean, it's going to soak it up quicker. The cork, and so we probably need double the amount of lube that you would at sea level. But it's
Probably have a humidor
I mean,
in
I
the
think
shop for him.
what's that?
Probably have a humidor in the shop for him with the cigars and a couple Shilton corks.
Yeah, there you go. Well, let's go to yeah. I mean, we could go on the gear for forever, but Colin, so you guys you stopped at Alphonse, and then you went to you landed in a stove.
We actually did a pit stop at Farquhar because I mean there's a lot of stuff
Cool.
going on in the world when we were on our way over there, and so one of the guys missed his flight. So it was cool to step off and just walk around for a bit. But we stopped. We went Alphonse and then Alphonse to Farquhar, Farquhar to a stove, and then a stove over.
So you got the
And
full
then
tour.
Yeah, full tour.
yeah, great tour. And how I'm trying to remember, how long was your boat ride? I think you told me.
I think it was an hour and a half at most. It was pretty quick.
And Keith, it can kick up. Is that why, like, sometimes say up to like 3 or 4 hours from?
Yeah, well, we had following seas, so on the way back to go, it was pretty windy, pretty wavy, but still, it was, I think it was 2 hours maybe.
Yeah, so it can kick up, so it can kick up pretty quickly because of the currents there. So what we do in the background is we have a smaller plane which is based in Mahe, and if the conditions get by any means dangerous or extremely uncomfortable, what we do is we fly a second plane. So we fly the small plane ahead, and it'll go all the way to a stove, and it'll wait there, and then it'll start shuttling people between a stove and Cosmoledo, because we have a small runway there, very short runway, and then we'll fly the big plane in, and then put everybody on the big plane, and it flies everyone back, and the small plane then comes back a little bit later. So we have got that sorted from a safety aspect, and also obviously you're in the tropics, cyclonic weather can happen. And if it does happen, it generally passes through very quickly. So it can be a couple of days, but the fishing's really, really good after the cyclone. So
You bet.
generally, we'll let the guests stay as long as they want at Cosmo, and then just before the weather gets too bad, we'll fly the little plane in, we'll collect them all, take them to Alphonse, keep them on Alphonse for a couple of days, and when the cyclone passes over, we'll fly them all back in, and then they can continue their week. So the beauty of our business is that we have got scale. Now we've got the ability to take care of people in a different way. We have a lot of infrastructure to fall back on. We have a lot of staff, a lot of accommodation, and we're able to take care of people that have traveled a long way. People that obviously it's not easy to get to. So when they arrive there, they need to know that their money is well spent and that we're going to take care of them. So we have that ability. We do have that.
Yeah, I mean, it was an impressive setup. The eco camp on Cosmo. I mean, the tent's really cool. And then obviously the shipping container rooms were great. The AC was awesome. I was shocked that there was flushing toilets on Cosmo. And then I mean the whole staff, everything was great. I mean the food was 10 out of 5. Like incredible food. A lot of fresh fish. Yeah, stood out.
Yeah, so and what's really cool about it is I mean, if we go back, then correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, but the history of Cosmoledo, 19th century, right? Tobacco, copra, which copra is the dried meat, coconut, I think.
So it was primarily they utilized it for mangrove wood, and then so mangrove wood. Obviously, at Menai, there's a big mangrove area. They would use for the bark for dyeing. They would do turtles, obviously a massive turtle area. They would do dried fish. They would do conch shell, and they would do copra, but not so much copra on Cosmoledo. Doesn't have many coconuts, but it is basically a throughfare for seafarers, and they would get fresh water, and they would get different things to eat and so forth. But also, at one stage, it was the center of harvesting turtles for the turtle soup trade at one stage. So go back 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, it wasn't in a healthy position. It was commercially fished, handline from close to the shore. A lot of turtles, and always birds' eggs. They used to crop the eggs at Wizard, take all the sooty tuna eggs. So a hell of a lot of commercial stuff happened there until it no longer became commercially viable, and the islands were left to their own. And they kind of rejuvenated, and when we first went there in 2005, it was exactly that. It was a rejuvenated atoll. It was amazing and wild. And thankfully it's still like that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of turtle. Actually got to see a couple tiger sharks and turtles, which was insane.
It is insane.
Actually, first day waiting, like on arrival to Cosmo, we, after like kind of gear set up, a few of us went out and just were like, let's go walk, and just went out for a wade. And we went out on the sand spit just right from the camp there. And on our way back, I saw this shark coming towards us, and I was like, it's just a nurse shark. Kept walking, and then he was about a rod length away, and he turned sideways and just stripes down the side. It was a pretty good one too, like maybe 10 plus feet. And I was like, oh shit, there he is. Tide was coming in quick too, so I was like, I gotta get out of here.
Well, if you're gonna get eaten, you're not gonna see him, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just gonna feel the bite. So it's I mean, incredible place. The nice thing about it is that all those sharks, they've got enough food, so they don't bother us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I don't know where I read this or heard it, but at some point I heard you say, Keith, like, because the point there is, right, what you all have done there doesn't, it's as if it was 70 years ago. I mean, at least to me, walking on there, and maybe to you, Colin. I mean, the main lodge is a tent. It's very cool, and I don't know where I heard or read this, but you referenced kind of you already said it, right? You guys put that up in 21 days, and it has a feeling of an eco camp that was, as it always was. But do you attribute that to kind of the African edge, so to speak. I mean, I'm always preaching how easy, you know, we have it, because I feel like I have been fortunate enough to travel and experience other cultures, and then to come back here. And a lot of times I feel like we've, you know, Colin's probably heard me say it way too often, like we've got it pretty damn good. But is that,
Yeah.
I mean, do you attribute it to that? I mean, being able to pull that off?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of South Africans that are bumping around now in the fly fishing fraternity. You know, really, really good ones. And I think it stems from, you know, the adventure side of things in Africa. You know, we've had to deal with big animals for most of our lives, and we've been out in the wilderness, and we've seen these most incredible places, and we've cut our teeth at operating in the most difficult places in Africa to operate. So for us, you know, taking on a challenge like Cosmoledo is you know, it wasn't too much of a challenge which concerned us. You know, we knew that if you did your planning correctly, and if you had, you know, a backup plan for a backup plan, you'll be fine. So you know, our partners in it was RDC. I had the CEO of RDC, Denny Savvy, with me, and we had a team of 12 of my guys and 20 of his guys, and we slept in tents on the floor, and we went about digging holes, and we built the camp. You know, 21 days. The beauty of the camp is that now if you can build a camp so quickly, you can break it down as quickly. So we can break that camp down so there's almost nothing left. The only things which will remain will be the old foundations from the buildings that were from the past. And there's one building which is a cyclone-proof building, which we built. Obviously, with climate change and the changes in weather systems, we couldn't really look back at the history anymore and say, well, you know, there hasn't been a devastating cyclone at Cosmoledo because we're not sure what the future is going to bring. So we built a cyclone shelter. So should we be caught with our pants down, in a sense, we've got a room to go to, and then we obviously put in the short runway. It is mostly grass, but it has got one section of concrete. But other than that, we can take it all away. It would be as if no one's been there before. You know, and the concrete runway is not a massive slab. It can be easily broken, and so can the building. So we could return it back completely to the wild within, call it, you know, a couple of months easily, and everything can be taken away. So it is remarkable in the sense that it is as small as possible to still make it feel authentic. You know.
Yeah, it does. And yeah, Colin, let's go through some highlights, because you got some videos of some guys that are just jacked beyond belief. I saw, you know, some great videos and photos of some big jeets caught. I saw triggers, as we talked about earlier. You know, we saw there's some big bonefish were caught, right? Walk us through some highlights, and yeah, how the trip went.
Yeah, I would say overall success. I mean, sure, there's always hiccups on trips. But once we got there, it was smooth as can be. Or once we even got, you know, to Mahe. But I'd say, you know, kind of seemed like, I would say, somewhat of an average week. But for us, it was just mind blowing, I would say. I think there were 3 fish caught over meter, which is remarkable. I think there were a lot more than that hooked. I mean, I definitely saw it. I definitely experienced it as well. But yeah, there's definitely some funny videos in there of some guys, you know, landing those meter jeets and just absolutely losing their minds. But I think what was really special is every single person on the trip caught a GT. And then that's what my goal for the trip was, is like, I just want every single person to get one. And it happened, which was incredible. But, you know, like we were talking about, like lots of other species, we caught a lot of 7 to 10 pound bones. There were a couple triggers caught, one Indo-Pacific permit caught. Yeah, I think I lost close to a 6-foot barracuda, which was unfortunate. It just pulled the hook, didn't even cut the line or anything. We saw some huge doggies, dogfish tuna, or dogtooth tuna. A lot of blueies and a lot of bohar snapper, which the bohars were always a surprise. You know, stripping it back in, so almost like you get right by the boat. And it's just like, just hang on so you don't lose that fly, because you're going to want that thing. One of the more memorable videos in there is when Steve, one of the guys on the trip, hooked a meter jeet. And Liam turns the boat on, is chasing this thing down. It wrapped around a couple coral heads. He gets it out just on the boat. And then one of them fish goes in between, I think, 2 of the coral heads, and was wrapped pretty good. And Liam speeds up in the boat, jumps off the top rope, off the pulling platform, gets the line out. And the commentary is just comedic gold, I would say, of them screaming at each other. And pretty impressive, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Wild
I mean,
place.
impressive enough to go back. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've got Cosmoledo next year, and then Farquhar and Providence the year after, and more to come. Yeah, it's wildly impressive. One question I did have, Keith, just out of curiosity, is there's always a lot of talk about how with GTs, how do you, because that's right, some people argue it both ways. How do you set your drag before you're casting?
Yeah, so you don't want it too tight. You want a decent drag, but you don't want it too tight. If you lock your if you make a cast and lock your reel up, and all that's going to happen is startup Nesha is just going to explode the line. You're not going to even have a second of a fight with a GT. So it's quite important that you utilize the drag in a way of applying the pressure gradually. So it's much easier in shallow water to apply the pressure, because obviously because of the shape of a giant trevally's head, his mouth's at the bottom. So as you apply the drag, it pulls his head down. So if you're applying drag often it'll make a GD go in deep water. It'll tend to go down. Whereas if you apply a drag in the flats, he can't go down, so he goes onto the sand. So you can in a sense flip him. So his first run, he's gonna run and see how far he can get away from you. You gradually click it out and make it tighter. And then once he turns around and comes back, he'll try and look for some structure. So if he comes back, obviously you got to get line back as quick as possible. But if you've locked your reel down, be ready to loosen it a bit again, because if he goes again and you've locked it all the way down to stop him from going somewhere, the start initial is going to break the line. Yeah. So it's back off again. Let him look for the structure. Try and stop him from going to the structure, and then you should be fine. Not to touch the drag again. You can go pretty tight. I'm a firm believer in that. You can fight a GT very hard. If he's going to bite you off, which they've got these sharp canine teeth, conical canine teeth, he's going to bite you off right in the beginning. So you can pull hard. It is a tug of war, and the harder the more you can point that rod, the harder you can pull him, the quicker and easier. Well, not easier. The quicker you can land him, obviously, but also the better chance you have of getting him. The guards obviously they know what they're doing out there. So don't take what I'm telling you as gospel, because all situations aren't the same. If you're in the deep and you got a big fish and you apply that amount of pressure and he touches any kind of coral, it's gone. So quite often the guys will want you to back off the drag a little bit. Let that fish get through the difficult areas. And then, as you said, like Liam did, you'll get back on top of him and you'll pull. And if he does end up going through some coral, at least you don't have that tension to snap the line. As long as your fly line's rigged correctly, you've got the reinforced loops, you've got really good knots, and you've got 130 pound, and you got a good fly line. You should be okay.
Yeah, I think in that video he goes and says he's like loosen, tighten, like just kind of throughout the whole video over and over again.
It depends where the fish is.
Yeah.
This has been my experience, but it's the motorcycle gang of the sea, right? Like they come on the flats, they act like they own the place, and so when you hook one, it would be like going up to the biggest badass guy in a motorcycle gang, and you're going to get in a fight and breaking his nose, right? Like, I mean that'll stun him, right? Yeah. and maybe he'll think differently about fighting you. But do you think that's kind of the same? I mean, I've always thought, like, if you can break their spirit very quickly, first run.
If you can beat him on that first run, that's why I say that if you hook them in the shallows, it's a lot easier. If you hook him in deep water, they've just got so much more water to work in. If you can break his spirit early on the flats and keep him on the flats, you can get him real quick. Obviously he's going to give you a lot of trouble close to you, but if you stop that momentum in the beginning, you've got a good chance.
Yeah,
and the only way you can do that is by applying pressure. You can't just lock up. You're going to break him off. You're going to straighten the hook. You're going to do whatever. You've got to apply the brakes. It's like slowing down a car. You can't just slam them on. You got to have ABS brakes. You got to slowly put the pressure on.
It's a good way to describe it. I would say, on the topic of GTs, like I think two really interesting things to me was the ability to change color in a split second, like kind of like a light switch turning on or off, was pretty incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
super cool, especially right when you hook one. Maybe he was black, and as soon as you hook him, he turns silver.
Yeah, you might have to explain that a little further, because I don't think people might be listening being like, what is he talking about?
Yeah, yeah, and Keith, maybe you're the one to answer this. I think it seemed like it changed based on mood and even environment. Whether they were happy or maybe unhappy or spooked or being hooked or being released, it seemed to always kind of flip up a switch, just silver to black.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Or vice
colorless.
versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can change quite easily. They can go from black to silver. But generally, I believe it is the males that are generally black a lot of the time, with the females generally being a little bit bigger and silver. There's experience that I had once before, which dials it down. Is that we were fishing well, I've actually had it a few times. We were fishing a surf break, and it was very milky in the water, and you couldn't see the females, but you could see the males. They were all sitting there because they thought they were camouflaged. They turned themselves black, and the females turned themselves white. And and then you cast it, and you immediately see a GT come out, and you'll eat the fly, and within seconds that fish has gone silver. So they've got that ability. It is a mood thing. Generally, you'll find the giant trevally when they're on rays, they tend to be darker. But you do see them on rays when they're light as well. I don't think it's an exact science as to what color they are, but I think it has a correlation with what they're doing. If they're feeling a little more aggressive, or they're hunting for a bit of camouflage. Also when they're spawning, when they're in that spawning sort of, what do you call it? They shoal up, and they're dating in a sense. Often you'll get a male sitting above a female. The male will be black and the female will be silver. In a big shoal, So there are these kind of things. I don't think I understand it completely. There'll probably be some scientists that are listening and saying you're an absolute idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. But that's what I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second one to me was like there almost seemed to be a pecking order when there was like a gang of Jeets coming in, or school, and maybe I'm wrong, but like I feel like with permit, a lot of times if you're casting at a school of permit, especially Atlantics, like the smaller one a lot of times eats the fly. But I don't know, maybe I could be wrong here, but I felt like a lot of times we saw like a school, or like maybe 8 to 10 Jeets coming in, and you throw it in there, and a lot of times the smaller fish would be kind of toying with it, and like they don't miss, so it's like it seemed like they were just playing with it, and then the big one would come up and eat it most of the time. It's almost like they flooded away and they were like, nope, this isn't for me.
So funny enough, it's a good idea to be the second guy to cast.
Yeah.
Quite often, if you put a fly in and there's 2 or 3 fish there, the little one is a lot faster than the big guy, and he'll eat the fly. But a good lesson and a reminder and when you listen to the guides, you'll see it. For the smaller fish, you generally strip faster. For the bigger fish, you strip slower, much slower. And you strip it all the way, that fly almost into the rod tip. And over the years, I've had more big fish eat with the leader inside the rod than out.
Wow.
Where they followed it all the way to you. And at the last minute, they've seen you and they decide to eat the fly, and you've hooked them. Obviously, as you hook them and you've got all these knots going through rod tips, you pull the front of the rod off, the section of the rod off, and off it goes with the fish, and you're fighting with just the butt of the reel. But that's an important thing. Don't ever lift your rod. When a GT is coming at you, try not to. I mean, it's obviously exciting, but keep your rod down, because he's going to follow all the way to you. Sometimes they'll speak a little earlier, but the big guys don't care. They're the matriarch. They only reason why they're eating clothes because they want something big. They don't want to utilize all the energy chasing small fish around. They want to make sure that when they're going to use that energy, they're going to catch that fish. So they're going to follow it. And so you get those big fish very close to the boat or very close to your feet.
And I mean it's incredible, their eyesight too. I think the group as a whole, I think the only regret was like, and I told everyone going into it, I mean, I had the mindset too of like, just cast it what's like, we're here, like just cast it whatever in front of you. Like, don't be afraid to mix it up. And I think towards the end, a lot of people were like, I think everyone got a little obsessed over the GTs. I mean, because it was great action and it's what we went there for. But at the same time, at the end of the week, a lot of people were like, man, should have spent more time on this triggers, or should have done this, which was pretty funny. So it's like, I think that's important for everyone going there. It's like, keep an open mind and don't be afraid to fish at whatever's in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I just had a conversation in Mexico with a guy that I was in Cosmoledo with, really good friend of JT's, and fishes with JT as well, and they went off and dredged, and I told you about that, Colin. I mean, he still says it's the best day of fishing he's like best session he's ever had, and they lost everything.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost a reel, they lost a rod, they broke every rod on the and right. I mean, you guys didn't even go do it. You said right.
I think one guy went dredging for maybe a morning or an afternoon. I don't think it was super active. Maybe I think we did more of the like when it got slow or the tide died and there wasn't much going on. I think we did more of the teasing in or blind casting more than the dredging itself. But still had some good action with that stuff. But yeah, did not experience the dredging like you described.
I didn't either, but this, I mean, he's still talking about it to this day. I mean, they came back with all of their gear obliterated, and they were just so happy. It was awesome. But Keith, is that one thing I've thought about? Like, if you go do that, because I mean, that's usually a fallback, but this wasn't. They just wanted to go catch and see what was off the ledge, right? Like, but do you generally need to do that like most fishing when the currents are pushing hard and right? I would imagine.
No, no, it can
No.
happen at any time. No, generally it's around weather more than anything else. If you obviously got brisk wind, you can't focus on the spots that well. You just sort of you're dragging your fly out. So if you've got nice calm weather and you're able to get that fly down, you've got obviously all the different species which hang about. And funny enough is that the boat acts as almost like a teaser in a sense, where all this commotion around the boat attracts the fish to the boat. So the more time you spend, if you go there and you drop down 2 or 3 times and don't catch anything, then generally, the people think that there's nothing there. But if you spend your time there, it generally gets better and better and better. But it's a fallback for us. It's not a everyday kind of thing that we have guests that come out and want to do that. But it does get exciting because obviously with all that commotion, the GTs love it as well. So they come to the boat as well. So you're catching them as well. But it's a great thing to try on the outside of the lagoon when you're fishing for milkfish. We often see a lot of milkfish offshore, feeding on the surface. And if you want to catch a milkfish, we'll generally run the scum lines and look for those guys and fish for them. But at the same time, in the same area where all these big creatures are hanging out below you, so it can be an exciting day. But what we do is we pick our tides and we act according to our tides. Obviously, if a guest wants to target a certain kind of species, we'll have a full go at getting that species. But if the tides aren't susceptible to it, we'll generally then guide them a different way. But I mean, there's a very famous thing in Alphonse called the Golden Grand Slam, which is 5 species in one day: triggerfish, Indo-Pacific permits, GT, bonefish, and I'm sorry, milkfish. So those 5 species in one day. And my business partner Murray Collins, we had obviously had too many drinks around the bar, and he thought it would be a wonderful idea to offer a free trip for someone that goes out and catches a golden grand slam. Well, of course, 2 days later we had someone who went out and caught a golden grand slam, so we had to deliver on this free trip. The problem with the story is that it ended up in the magazines. So a golden grand slam was caught, and if you catch a golden grand slam, you get a free trip.
Oh man!
So obviously, it took a few years to break that cycle because we had these golden grand slams being caught, and these guys go, "Yeah, I got a free trip," and we go, "Oh no, where did you hear that? Here's the article." So I just want to put it out there, guys. When you catch a golden grand slam in the Seychelles, there's no free trip. What are you going to do?
You get a shot. Right, you get a shot now, right?
Yeah, you get a shot for anything on Alpha, on any of our destinations. We encourage it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, yeah, I can. Actually, no, I did. Just looking at my notes, I had one more question before we let you go, because you referenced it, and I have experienced it. Poivre is one of the most interesting fisheries I think I've ever been to, and obviously it's not for everyone, right? I mean, it's a permit kind of junky spot. I've seen that when you're referencing, you had 600 shots and you don't, and I've gone down the rabbit hole of trying to tie brittle stars or fish an urchin, or like, what do you think that those fish, what do you think they're doing when they are tailing, right? They're
Yeah.
eating something,
Yeah.
and they want nothing to do with what you've got. What do you, I mean, I'd
It
love to hear
depends where
your
they are.
story.
So there's obviously that little tic shell, which is a small white sand crab, and they eat them. They love eating them. So I mean, it's not easy sort of replicating a clam shell, but they're eating those. They're eating that.
Motionless.
Yeah, they're eating any kind of little crustacean. Um, if I knew, I would have caught as many permit as you've caught. So I just don't know. And when you have 600 shots, you would think that by then you would have gone through 600 flies. You would have probably figured it out. But that's the great thing about it, is that you turn up to a place like Poivre, you don't know what it's going to be like. I mean, you can rock up there and you can have the perfect tides. They're there, but it's slow. Or you can rock up and you got the springy tides, it's not the right tides, and they all over the place, and you catch them and they're eating. So I think that's the amazing thing about the Pacific permit and the Amarantis chain. The only thing you can do is you can be dialed in. You can have your ability. Put the fly in the right place. You can make that fish see the fly. You can tweak the fly in the right way, but it's up to them to decide whether they want to or not. You can't unless you're good enough to cast it into their mouth, which I'm not. It's just that it's just that situation, which is amazing. Saying that,
But do you think, I mean, this is might be me going way too out there, but do you think there's any merit to when those fish get in that pattern that they could be eating something, like a drug? I mean, I often described it like they're stoned, because it's not like, a permit that's tailing sees you, blows up and gets out of there. It's almost like, they'll stay there 60, 70 feet away from you. They're tailing slowly. It's like someone just smoked a huge joint and is just like, hey, yeah, it's cool, whatever. I mean, is there any merit that they could be eating something that changes their, in your theory, obviously not.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not.
I think a lot of the time they're eating that tic shell, so they focus on a particular kind of food, and they're so zoned in on that, and looking for that specific thing that they don't see everything else around them.
Yeah, just hyper focus.
Hyper focus. I mean, as you say, I've seen fish, and I've made 100 casts to them, and they haven't responded. I've seen fish that I've made 50 casts to, and on the 51st cast they've eaten the fly. So and I haven't. I've been through a string of flies, and I've ended up in the first fly that I casted the fish, and he's eaten it. So I mean, it's just that as it's just that portion of inability to figure it out, which is so exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope we never do, but I love the theories, right? And I mean, the funniest thing is probably one of my best permit moments ever happened on Poivre, and it didn't result in catching a fish, but there was a permit that was tailing, facing out, and it kept fading towards me, and I was backing up, and I was like, if I back up again, I'm going to crunch coral and this thing's going to be out of here. And it started fading towards me, and I was like, he's not eating what I have, and I can't. So I got in the water, like a swamp, just my eyes up, and the fish got so close tailing that it splashed my glasses.
Wow.
No way.
And
that's insane.
And that was, but that's when I was like, this thing wants nothing to do with what I've got, and it's focusing. I don't know. I love thinking about it, because it's wild shit.
The amazing thing about permit fishing is that you can get very good at it, so that things are weighted in your favor versus weighted in their favor. So I think that's the thing that drives me about fishing. If you ask me now, and you know, where would you like to go and what would you like to fish for? I definitely want to go fish for permit. And why is it? Is because it's the one side of fly fishing or one species of fish in the Seychelles that you can't 100% dial it in, but you can refine your ability so that things are on your side versus on the fisher's side. And I'm fishing patterns now that I never thought I'd fish for permit. I mean, I'm catching most of my Indo-Pacific permit on a snakeskin Alflexo with orange legs. And that was a fly we created for triggerfish. You know, I did the combination.
There's a lot of listeners that are just writing that down.
and funny enough, I wasn't the guy that caught the first permit on it. You know, on the snakeskin with the orange leg. I actually did the color combination for triggerfish because everyone is catching triggers with the orange crab, but it wasn't working as well as, you know, sorry, the orange crab, but the snakeskin crab was also working well. So I thought, listen, why don't we put some orange in the snakeskin and see if it works well. I mean, when we started fishing that fly for triggers, it was wild. I mean, every fish you cast at would have a go at it. And then one of our guides actually said to me, listen, you won't believe it, but we used the fly on the day off at Alphonse and threw it at a permit and he ate it immediately. And I happened to be on a trip where I was fishing. So I like looked into the box, got it out. And, you know, nice thing about it is when you cast a snakeskin Alflexo with an orange leg, you know they see it. So they can make a decision whether they want to eat it or not. And if they don't want it, you know they don't want it.
We on the last
they don't stop at the surf line, they stop at the drop off, you know?
Yeah.
We actually threw a floating crab for a bit. We had caught a bunch of bonefish on the last morning, and my boat partner and I, and we were like, let's put a floating crab on, and just like, because we were looking for a permit, and let's just see what happens. And we didn't end up getting to put it in front of a permit, unfortunately, but we did put it in front of a bunch of bonefish. They were actually really interested by it. They would just come up though, but then they would like almost eat it and then just spook. But they kept coming right to it. It was really interesting.
How deep was the water?
Shallow, maybe 3 feet max. It was like a lot of it was 2 to 3, like maybe a little less.
Well, I mean, the beautiful thing about the Seychelles, when there's so many fish, your learning curve, you know, reduces significantly. But also, you know, it's never done, always done. So, for instance, like, you know, 3 years ago, the boys figured out how to catch batfish. Where they designed a blue bottle fly.
Yeah.
You know, there's a weird looking blue bottle fly.
Cosmo, but no one had a blue bottle fly.
So they find foam or slops which have washed up on the shore. They cut a piece of foam, they put a trailing tentacle off it, and that's what they fish for these batfish. And if you ever caught a batfish, I mean, that thing fights like hell. I mean, it's got such a big profile, it goes sideways, and
tiny little tail, big body,
crazy. Yeah, I mean, you see him trying to eat that little that blue bottle fly. It's wild. It's amazing. You know, it's an amazing experience.
Yeah, we had someone just throwing some sandwich off when we were on one of your boats, and the batfish came in, and then someone's like, "Holy shit, tie something up!" And you know, they started grabbing foam out of the seat cushion, and then the captain was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't." It was great. Well, listen, like I said before we started, we could do this for hours, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. We'll definitely be doing it again, and yeah, really appreciate both of you guys jumping on, and truly was a pleasure. And thank you very much, and thank you. You know, we didn't get there, but we will next time. But more importantly, thanks for the conservation work out there, right? Like that's at the end of the day, that's everything. I mean, you guys are working hard to conserve, you know, your operations and make it around so that so you know someday our kids can hopefully experience them, and all the studies and and the money going towards it. It's really important, and thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you know, I know it's a cliche where we always say thank you to everybody for coming out and protecting this place, but it really is something that people are doing by coming out and visiting us and putting their feet in Seychelles water. You know, they're protecting the Seychelles, and you know, we can prove it. We can show you. We can show you the data. We can show you what's happened. You know, we can show you the improvements that have happened. But it's also a unique story in the sense that it's the marine activities, the fly fishing, that's protecting not only the marine ecosystem but also the terrestrial ecosystem. So we protect the birds, the tortoises, the turtles. You know, everything above water as well as below water, so that you know for many generations it'll be there, you know, forever, hopefully. But you know. Yeah, thanks to you guys, you know, for your support, and I promise you keep sending guys our way, you know, or ladies our way, or partner couples our way, or families our way. We'll take good care of them, and we'll make sure that they see some fish. But as you say, it's up to them to make it happen. We can only show them the fish.
Yeah, exactly.
Pushing though.
Provide opportunity. That's about it. Well, thanks again, and appreciate the time, gentlemen, and we'll talk soon for sure.
We'll see you in September,
Great,
Keith, right?
Yeah, looking forward.
Oh yeah, you're coming back out.
Yeah,
I'm coming back out.
Hell yeah.
I haven't caught enough cutthroat yet.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Well, thanks, gents.